In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Have you ever stopped to think about how profound Genesis 1:1 is? The Hebrew Scriptures, which became part of the Christian Bible, told us 3,000 years ago that the universe had a beginning. The verb used here in Genesis 1:1 is translated as create, but it means to bring into existence something entirely new that has never existed before. And the phrase heavens and the earth means the entirety of everything, not just the earth and not just heaven. The Bible, as well as all of time and space, begin with this simple but profound statement. It also begins the section of the Bible, the first 2 chapters of Genesis, that many people point to as proof that Christianity is nonsense and the reason they won't even consider the claims of Jesus of Nazareth. Now, this is unfortunate because as we continue to do science and discover more and more about nature, we find that what we discover through science actually supports what the Bible has always taught about the universe. One of the most tested and most confirmed scientific theories is that all matter, energy, space, and time had a beginning. This idea of creation out of nothing is one of the basic doctrines of the Christian faith. It's the first verse of the Bible. Jews and Christians have held this view for thousands of years, despite scientists that taught otherwise. The Aristotelian view of the universe as eternal was the standard scientific model for 2,000 years prior to the mid to late 20th century, when we started to discover that the universe actually did have a beginning. This video, together with the next one, will demonstrate the incredible agreement between what the Bible teaches and what current science is discovering about the beginning of the universe. Thinking that the universe was eternal in the past did create a paradox, first attributed to the German amateur astronomer Heinrich Wilhelm Oblers in 1823. His dark night sky paradox had in fact been discussed throughout the history of science. And here's the paradox. There are an incomprehensible number of stars that cover every inch of the sky. If you drew a straight line out from the Earth in any direction, you would eventually hit a star. Now, if light from those stars has been coming toward the Earth for eternity, for an infinite period of time, why is the majority of the night sky still dark? If the universe has existed forever, then the sky should always be filled with light. But it's not. Well, the first empirical evidence that maybe the universe has not existed forever came in 1914 when Vesto Slipher showed that several nebula, and at that time nebula were defined as just any diffuse astronomical object. Well, in 1914, Vesto Slipher showed that several nebula were moving away from the Earth. In 1916, Albert Einstein discovered that his equations of general relativity actually predicted an expanding universe, implying that the universe was not fixed and maybe had a beginning. Einstein, though, fudged his equations to make them fit the current view of a fixed, unchanging universe, later calling that act the biggest mistake of his career. Alexander Friedmann, a Russian mathematician working with Einstein's theories in the 1920s, mathematically demonstrated that the universe is expanding. A Belgian Roman Catholic priest, Georges Lemaitre, also in the 1920s, realized the implications of general relativity and in 1927 published the first paper on the expansion of the universe. Lemaitre actually proposed Hubble's law and calculated Hubble's constant before Edwin Hubble did. Now, it's appropriate that this came first from a Catholic priest because it is some of the first scientific evidence that the universe had a beginning. A few years later, Hubble did provide experimental confirmation of what Slipher and Lemaitre had shown, that velocities of galaxies moving away from us must result from a general expansion of the universe. The implication here is that if the universe is expanding, then it must at some time in the past have been denser. Lemaitre, in a 1931 letter to Nature, proposed what we now call the Big Bang theory. If the world has begun with a single quantum, the notions of space and time would altogether fail to have any meaning at the beginning. They would only begin to have a sensible meaning when the original quantum had been divided into a sufficient number of quanta. If this suggestion is correct, the beginning of the world happened a little before the beginning of space and time. While the debate over whether the universe had a beginning continued, George Gamow, a chemist, showed in 1946 that only a universe expanding from an extremely hot condition could account for the present abundance of elements we now observe. However, the evidence that finally convinced most scientists that the universe did indeed have a beginning came in 1965 when Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson detected, quite by accident, the radiation left over from the creation event, which showed that the universe had to begin in a very hot and dense state. Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose added some evidence in 1970 when they demonstrated mathematically that any universe governed by Einstein's general theory of relativity must have begun in an initial singularity, a small, infinitely dense state of infinite space-time curvature. This singularity proof provides evidence that our material universe began to exist in an infinitely dense state some finite time ago, starting from nothing spatial, nothing temporal, nothing material, or nothing physical. In other words, the universe came from something outside of the universe. In the last 25 years, the COBE satellite and the WMAP probe, as well as the Planck spacecraft, have all collected data that has strengthened the hot Big Bang model and confirmed that the universe had a beginning. In 2003, 3 scientists collaborated on a theory which states that any universe which is expanding cannot be infinite in the past. Arvin Board, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin based their theory on Einstein's special theory of relativity, so it doesn't fall prey, like the Hawking-Penrose models do, to the arguments about quantum mechanics negating what general relativity predicts. In 2012, Vilenkin, at a conference at Cambridge University in celebration of Stephen Hawking's 70th birthday, concluded, quote, "There are no models at this time that provide a satisfactory explanation for a universe without a beginning." This expanded on what he had written in 2006, quote, "With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning." Current Big Bang Cosmology teaches that all matter, all time, all space, and all energy were created out of nothing in a hot, dense singularity that has been expanding and cooling ever since. The data is so strong that the debate among scientists is really no longer if there was a beginning. Now it is mostly a discussion over what, or Christians would say who, caused the beginning. Lemaitre referred to the beginning of the universe that he proposed in 1931 as a now without a yesterday. As you will see in the next video, this description is identical to how the Bible has always described the beginning of the universe. A 1933 article in the New York Times summarized the point of all the videos in this series that science and Christianity are not in conflict. A Catholic priest, who already knew from what the Bible taught that there was a beginning to the universe, was the first to demonstrate this fact mathematically. There is no conflict between religion and science, as Abbé Lemaitre has been telling audiences over and over again in this country, and then proving it by explaining the aims of both. His view is interesting and important not because he's a Catholic priest, not because he is one of the leading mathematical physicists of our time, but because he is both. Here is a man who believes firmly in the Bible as a revelation from on high, but who develops a theory of the universe without the slightest regard for the teachings of revealed religion on Genesis. And there is no conflict.